Kerry Vance here with Steve Angello backstage at the 7th Annual Summer Sessions, where, Steve, you just did a great Q&A with Geronimo from SiriusXM BPM. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I heard yesterday you were in Times Square. One of the questions that came up on the panel was New York City, and you premiered your new video in Times Square. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
It was great. You know, a lot of fans came out, and the vibe was great. So it was more about hanging out with the fans than actually watching the video, but it was fun.
And I'm told the concept is video games?
Yes. It's video games in reality.
Well, growing up, were you a video game junkie?
No, not necessarily. You know, it's just that if you look at youth today, it's very much video games. So Lance wanted to take it out of proportion a little bit and put in reality and see how people react to it.
Now, your current single, brand new single on Columbia Size Records, is Wasted Love, featuring Dougie from the Temper Trap.
Correct, yeah.
Can you tell us a little about the song, how you came up with it?
I've always been a fan of Dougie, and I started working with him a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, writing the single. So he's just a great artist. He has a very unique voice. He's very different as an artist, and it's been a dream collaboration, and I'm happy we actually got together and actually made this happen.
Now, this evening at the prior to the award show, there's a dinner being held, and you're going to debut some tracks from your album. Anything in particular that you personally love from the album, something that stands out more than others?
I've picked out like 6 songs that I want to play. Maybe it's going to be 5, we'll see, that are very different from each other. So I love these songs very much, and it's a little of everything in there. So it's going to be fun to see reactions.
And the name of the album is?
Wild Youth.
And when can we expect to be able to hear it in its entirety?
Fall.
Now, I was talking earlier to DJ Ron, gave me a little bit of a heads up. Earlier in my career, I worked with the Daft Punk guys, and I think Ron mentioned when you heard Daft Punk, you equated it to a musical orgasm.
Correct. That's true, yeah. I mean, the way they brought homework, you know, there was nothing like it. They did such an amazing job on the album, and it's a timeless piece of art. It's never going to go away, you know, and it's just legendary.
Well, speaking of a timeless piece of art, Don't You Worry, Child was a song that's just one of those like life-altering, life-changing, greatest records of all time kind of thing. Anything, can we hear something like that, expect something like that from the album? Do you see something of that magnitude?
I think it depends. You know, it depends on the record. It depends on the reaction, and usually when a record that is emotional becomes successful, it becomes one of those records. You know, so we'll see.
Now, you run a label called Size. I guess a lot of people say size matters. How'd you come up with the name Size?
I wanted to find something that could be universal, that we could use in multiple sentences, or that would mean stuff that people would be a little confused of. Size matters could also be smaller or bigger. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to always grow. And I just wanted to find something that felt great. And then Junior Sanchez had a label called Cube back in the day, and I was really inspired by the 4 letters. So I wanted to find something with 4 letters.
So you've got some great music on the label: Max Vangelli, Anton, Ryan and Sonnery, Junior. Anything in particular on the label that's coming out that you want to talk about?
The forthcoming years, amazing. You know, we've really changed stuff within Size, and we're signing stuff that we wouldn't probably sign 2 years ago musically. And we're widening our horizons and going much wider within the subgenre or within any musical genre. And we're taking a really big step, and we're going to become much bigger the coming year. So it's going to be a really interesting years. We have some great artists that we're signing and we're going to work with.
Now, you mentioned in '97 you heard Daft Punk. Growing up, when you first got into DJing and producing, were there artists that you admired, that you looked after?
Sure. I mean, I've always, growing up, you know, I was into Aphex Twin and Moby and Chemical Brothers, Prodigy, Faithless, Derek May, you know, Frankie Knuckles, Todd Terry, you know, Masters at Work. There was so many great artists when I grew up, and it's good to see how different those artists were. Because if you think about it, early dance music, nobody sounded the same. everybody had their own little sound, and I think that's what's gonna make a great artist in the future too. Because once you find your thing, you're gonna stand out, and that way people are gonna fall in love with you and really embrace your art. And I think it's gonna come back to that.
And how did you first make the transition from being a DJ to producer, remixer?
I kind of had to start producing when I was young because it was part of it. It was part of being a producer as well. I started DJing. I was DJing hip hop and breaks and beats, and got into scratching and got into performance to scratching. Did a couple of competitions in Scandinavia and Europe, and grew within that. And then I just got into the studio and wanted to do my own stuff, and it was a pretty natural move for me.
Favorite city to DJ in?
Good question. It's so different. It's so different everywhere I am. Obviously I love to play in New York, and I haven't played LA in quite some time. But there's so many great cities: Toronto and Montreal and Chicago. Like there's so much good crowds.
I asked a question yesterday on the producer remixer panel. With all the places you play in the world, all the different festivals, do you have to modify and adapt to what the crowd is?
Yeah, I have to modify the mood of the mixing. Some crowds like slower mixing. Some crowds like longer journeys in between the songs, and some crowds don't understand the classics because they're young, or they don't understand the language. So yeah, you have to adapt a little bit. I play different in Brazil than when I play in North America. I play different in Sweden than I would in the rest of Europe. So yeah, I adapt a little bit. Um, but then again, if it's my own show, people buy tickets to come and hear me play my stuff. So for those shows, I usually stick to my own thing that I've done the past years.
Can we look forward to any more events like Size Decade?
Yes, yes, for sure. There's a couple of events we're planning now in North America for sure. There's going to be some really unique stuff coming up.
If you could go out tonight and see one DJ play, who would it be?
Good question. I would want to go see like somebody like Carl Cox or Eric Murillo, or um, even Richie Houghton. Just hear some techno and have fun. Dubfire.
With all the traveling you do, one must-have item with you at all times.
My jacket.
And last question, we're asking artists to give restaurant tips. If you could recommend a restaurant for your fans, for people to go eat at, you have a favorite restaurant anywhere in the world?
I mean, I spend so much time at Nobu. It's crazy. I eat Nobu more than I eat home cooked meals. So I would say Nobu. It's a little pricey, but there's some pieces in there you gotta try.
And if people want to find out more information about you or your label?
Social media, size.net, Steve Angelo on all the social medias.
Well, thank you, Steve, for taking time for us today. Thank you.